Welcome back to the Friday Night 360 AZ preview show. I'm Jordan Ham alongside Haley Stasiak, and now we're going to talk realignment. Every 2 years, the AIA comes in, goes off of enrollment and kind of some other factors to go ahead and make the how the teams will be aligned. This goes for all sports, but since this is a football show, we're going to be football-centric with this. So it just came down, and a lot of moving pieces here. Here are some notable ones that we've seen. Moving up from 5A to 6A, Chaparral, Liberty, Castile's going to make the jump from 3A to 5A. Higley will make the jump from 4A to 5A, as well as Sunrise Mountain making the jump from 4A to 5A. So there's still plenty of things going on. We're still looking into kind of each and everything, but at first glance, like we said, this was announced officially this morning. There had been some rumblings kind of earlier this week about it, but at least from that group that's moving up, what's your biggest takeaway, Haley?
You know, I'm still trying to kind of figure all this out with the realignment since I'm becoming more familiar with the Arizona high school football scene. I think Chaparral moving up to 6A. I mean, obviously the talent of Chaparral being challenged by the talent that's already in the 6A pool is pretty notable, as well as Liberty. With what Liberty has done this season, what they've been able to do, I think that's another big challenge for these other 6A teams. And obviously you've got your 6A powerhouses in Chandler and the like with that. But those two, I think especially, and then again, Castile, just the talent that I've seen out of and heard out of these teams this year alone, joining the ranks of the other talent in 6A is just stands out to me.
One other big rule change that they had was 6A, if you win your region, it's no longer an automatic bid. So essentially the 16 best teams are going to be getting in. I think that's a positive change. You know, there's some, there can be a big discrepancy between certain regions and the talent level. So just getting the best teams in there, I think, is the best moving forward. When we look at 5A and the changes that have happened, when you look at the 5A Santan region right now, 7 teams are in there. Campo Verde, they're having a great year. Castile makes the jump. Gilbert is coming down from 6A to 5A. I think an under-the-radar team. I think there's more talent than maybe what their 1-9 record last year showed. And I think Derek Zellner is a very good coach as well. So I think that's a team that's on the rise as well. Higley's in that, Maricopa, Tempe, and Williamsfield. So that, with the additions of Gilbert, Higley, and Castile, that's a bit of a gauntlet there in the Santan region. Moving down, a couple notables. Horizon is moving down from 6A to 5A. Desert Mountain is as well, and the aforementioned Gilbert Tigers are moving down as well. Those are the first couple that jump out to me. What are your thoughts on those 3 teams at least, or do any other jump out to you that moved down?
It's not so much moving down as the teams that are staying put. I know that there is some talk about Saguaro potentially moving up as just football, just because of the competition with that. So that is somewhat surprising to me, but at the same time not, because it's tough to just have one single sport move up instead of the team as a whole. So that essentially, Centennial is also staying put. So it's not so much the teams that are moving down as it was just a little bit that Saguaro didn't.
It's really interesting because the last group that, when they made these changes, they moved from 6A to Division I being the biggest group. That had 17 teams in it, and 16 of them made the playoffs. What happened was Centennial moved up, Chaparral moved up, Liberty moved up. They all competed. Centennial won the state championship in, at that time, Division I, but pseudo 6A. And then the next year they were moved back down. All of these schools were moved back down. But I believe Chaparral was like a 5 seed. Liberty was up there as well. They definitely competed. So it's probably the right spot for all of them to go. Centennial will be staying put, as is Saguaro. And like you said, Jason Mullins on this very show at the very beginning of the year said, look, we're trying to position ourselves. We're trying to see if the AIA will allow us to just move football up. But as a whole, the school has to move up and that sort of thing. So that's something that's definitely interesting. I know that Coach Mullins certainly wants to move up the ranks a bit there. But I think, you know, right now where 4A is, you know, to have Castile kind of leapfrog all of 4A as well, I find that very interesting. I think Horizon, Desert Mountain, and Gilbert, that's all positive moves for them. You know, some schools, they'll fight to try to stay up. even if they have a lesser enrollment. I don't know where any of these schools stand on it, but they have talent, and I think that they will be instant competitors in 5A that can really make some noise and kind of shift the power there in 5A a bit as well. In terms of there are a couple head scratchers, and this happens every year when it's based on enrollment. It may not be
four
entirely
individual wins and 2 relay wins at the
up to
FIU
competition.
Fall Classic.
And one
How
thing
is
to
he a
note
leader
that
on this
schools do
team,
have a chance to
and
appeal these decisions, whether they go up or down or they stay put. So that they're going to have a week to submit that, and then they'll find out the following week if they have that. But looking at Shadow Ridge, they're 1-7 on the year. They moved from 5A to 6A. Nogales 2-6. They move up to 6A. And Empire, who has been having a decent year, they make the jump from 3A to 5A as well. So those were some that kind of made you go, okay. So that's something to look out for as well. But based on kind of these changes, what's kind of the overarching kind of theme that you've seen, or teams you're happy for, teams that you're not sure about now that they've made the moves and that sort of thing?
I mean, happy for Chaparral and Liberty, especially moving into that 6A spot. But I think the other big thing to discuss with all of this realignment is it is based on enrollment. So it's not based on how well these teams compete
down to Rio
and
for the
how
2016
all of that
Olympics
works.
with
It's
Jade Howard,
looking at
who
these
swam
schools
for
as a
Team
whole,
Zambia.
how many
What
kids
was
do they
that
have, how
experience
many
like?
kids do they have participating in sports all around. That includes swimming, that includes your cross country, your smaller sports, girls sports. So that's just kind of the interesting thing to me. If it was based on competition, I think things could get pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But again, it's that school as a whole, not individual sports as a whole.
Right. And to give the AIA credit, in the past couple cycles, there have been those head scratchers, and they've heard the appeals, and they've, for the most part, listened to them and made the necessary adjustments. I think it's a good move for Gilbert to make that move down, because their numbers this year for football, again, a very talented team, but they were sitting at about 40. Whereas a Chandler, which is right down the street,
1, 2, 3.
a Hamilton, which is right down the street, has 2 to 3 times as many players in that program. And school size, it's a good barometer for the most part, but there are those cases. And I think, we talked earlier this year about where Castile was.
First year of Division I postseason eligibility
the
for all
issues
GCU
that were caused
sports.
earlier in
For
the
your
season
team, you
about
have a
running
few
up the
athletes who are
score,
already on pace for postseason berth.
Just kind of beating up on the teams that had lesser competition. Look, when you're in 3A, there's a pretty big discrepancy. So if you do play a lower tier team, it's a tough place to be in, because they're growing. They have huge numbers. They have talent. They have experience. But they still want to make sure when they're playing those top 3.
Yeah, I would agree. Cam, appreciate the time. Safe travels back home after the game. Appreciate you spending some time. Okay, I got about 2 minutes left. I want to hit 2 more things. That guy you work with on the radio, I listen to him he's better than ever. I mean, I'm amazed. I've always said, anybody, and I do a little political play, but that's what we said. Anybody that thinks they can do it the way Al does it, Sports 360, why don't you just say you can play golf like Jack Common? We're
much better position for that. So I'm sure plenty's going to change over the next couple of weeks with this. There's going to be a lot of debate. Again, I think the second we get off the show, we're going to be digging deeper and putting out some content on.
Lastly, you are a Notre Dame alum.
Really thought it out.
There is a football game in South Bend Saturday. Do you understand that if Notre Dame beats USC, the Pac-12 is virtually destroyed for the college football playoff? Don't you?
Coming up next,
don't you feel bad about that at all?
Preview our Week 9, not Week 12, as Haley said she is already thinking about the playoffs. But yeah, we're going to preview some Week 9 games. We have some from all over the state, so keep it right here on the Friday Night 360 AZ preview.
Hey, listen, a win, and you guys got to be. Notre Dame only has 1 loss, right?
They only have 1 loss. So they still got a lot of great games, though. North Carolina State in the top 20. You got USC.